Hi everyone, welcome to class. We're going to start laying down on our mat. So take your time, bring yourself down to a comfortable position. My suggestion is that when you come to lay down, you're laying on your back with your feet on the floor and your knees pointed up towards the ceiling or the sky if you're outside. So bringing yourself down onto your back. Feet will find the floor. Take your time in getting down there. There really isn't any hurry to suddenly be still. So if on your way down you think you need a bit of a wiggle and a stretch, or you need to make any kind of movement, you are very welcome to. So take your time in finding this comfortable reclined position for your body. Your hands can rest wherever you like. My preference is to have them rest in my belly. You might prefer to have them by your sides or gently sort of out wide overhead. Some people really like that sensation in their shoulders and chest. So coming into whatever position feels comfortable and is going to allow you to drop into a moment of stillness here as we begin our practice the same way we always do, with this dropping in. And by that I mean, by dropping in, I mean we spend a few moments at the beginning kind of becoming aware of the body and reminding ourselves, perhaps, or I'll remind you of one of my favourite little things to roll around in my brain, which is the body only exists in the present. It's the mind, actually, that can leap around, future, past, what if, hypothetical, rewriting the past, hindsight, and all of that. That's all in the mind. The body exists right now. So we're seeing if we can become aware of the body right now. Tapping into the sensations that we can feel. Maybe the mat underneath you. Perhaps it's cool against your skin. Perhaps there are points of pressure on the back of the body. Identifying these real, tangible sensations that are happening right now in this moment. And perhaps noticing, as you become more aware of the body, you might become more aware of other feelings in the body. Emotion, perhaps. Very subtle movement. Little pulses in the muscles. You might become aware of the way the breath moves the body. And all of this happening right now in this moment. Not anywhere else, not in any other time, right now. Become aware of the breath. Notice the rise of the inhale breath and the energy it brings with it. And the easy, relaxed fall of the exhale breath. The way tension drops from the shoulders, the body releases down. When you feel ready, start to use that breath perhaps to wiggle the fingers and the toes, to roll and flex the wrists and the feet, waking the body up in any way that feels right for you. And when you feel ready, we're going to all meet with the arms up and overhead. And it's your choice how you bring the arms into position here. You could choose to bring two hands underneath the back of your head, making a bit of a pillow for the back of your skull. Or if you've got more space in the shoulders and you want to find a little more constricted movement, I'm going to say, because you create restriction by grabbing hold of opposite elbows overhead, then you're very welcome to come to that. So it's either hands behind the back of the head, elbows wide, or elbows or hands catching elbows overhead. With the soles of the feet on the floor, we're just going to start to rock and roll the knees from side to side. So sort of windscreen wipering the knees, but keeping the hands, the arms, the shoulders in this position. So you'll rock and roll knees to the right, then back through center, knees to the left, and back through center. And you might notice that having this sort of kind of small version of a bind of the arms overhead allows this movement to really happen in the lower body. And if you want more sensation, you are very welcome to dig into the left foot when you move to the left, and to anchor into the right foot when you move to the right. You can really give the floor a little push through the feet if you want more sensation. Just going to keep that going. A couple more rounds, a couple more breaths. The arms, the shoulders, the upper body stay where they are. The lower body rolls and rotates. Evening out your final rotation now. So just making sure you've stretched equally both sides. And we'll come back and meet in the center. Draw yourself back through to the center. You're going to reach down the body with your arms until the hands are right down by your sides. The fingertips are just going to lightly brush against the backs of the heels. So fingertips are looking to just lightly touch the backs of the heels. And we're going to come into a kind of version of our rolling bridge, thinking about articulating the spine, but in a way that is very much kind of suitable for the beginning of a practice. Often we come to bridge at the end. So we'll see how maybe it feels different to be in bridge here at the beginning. And it'll start with just the very smallest movement, with the drawing down of the belly button and rolling away from the mat of the tailbone. So you literally just scooping the pelvis underneath you. The hips don't even leave the floor. And then you'll reverse that, pressing down the tailbone, letting the belly button lift and the lower back maybe arches away from the floor. So rolling the back of the pelvis down into the mat, tailbone lifting, pubic bone scooping up, and then taking it the other way, digging tailbone down into the floor, letting lower back arch. Go one more, roll like that, imprinting the spine to the floor, and then rolling, pressing tailbone down and letting the back arch away. And then draw yourself back through to more or less a neutral position. From that neutral position, we're going to start to make it a slightly bigger movement, pressing down into the feet, leaving the knees pointing straight towards the ceiling. You'll squeeze the bum and let the tailbone roll away from the mat as you lift up to a very shallow bridge. You're not coming up to your absolute maximum here. You're just coming up away from the floor. At the top, you'll take a breath. And then with the exhale, you'll let the body roll its way back down to the floor. And we're going to keep that going. So matching it up with the breath. It's the inhale that will lift you into a very shallow bridge, barely away from the floor, but working that articulation in the spine. And your exhale that will lower you one vertebrae at a time, gently back to the mat, tailbone touches down. You can keep that going with your own breath. The inhale picks you up, scoops you away from the floor. The exhale lowers you down. Perhaps noticing how muscles are starting to light up in the legs here. You might feel the fronts of the thighs, the quadriceps kick into gear. You might feel the backs of the thighs, the hamstrings come into action. Keeping the feet firmly planted. We'll go one more roll with your own breath, really kind of getting the bones of the back body to move in the same way that we do in our cat-cow. You're really getting some movement through the vertebrae. When the tailbone touches down this time, you can gently let the knees come up in towards the chest. Maybe you want to give them a bit of a hug. Maybe you want to roll the ankles. Maybe there are other movements that you feel like you need. From here, we're going to roll to our side and gently push ourselves up through a seated position, but we're not going to stay there for very long. So pressing yourself up, and we'll meet on all fours. So we're going straight over onto our hands and knees. And if you are somebody who is working on a very hard floor or has quite sensitive knees, a blanket is a good idea throughout this next section of where we're going, just to keep a little bit of comfort underneath the knees. So if you want to pop a blanket under the knees, this is your moment to do that. We'll meet with the fingers spread wide, the index finger knuckle anchoring down. We're going to take lots of breaks off the wrists, so don't worry, you're not going to end up with that kind of wrist pain or fatigue. But if you are somebody who struggles with tension in the wrists, or it feels uncomfortable to have the hands on the floor like this, think about anchoring down, index finger knuckle, rolling the hand in towards the inside. From here, we'll go straight into it, familiar territory. You guys will know where you're going completely. We're moving into our cat-cow. We're going to inhale and lift the tailbone, allowing the belly to drop low, drawing the chest through between the upper arms and lifting the gaze. And on your exhale, you reverse that. You tuck the tailbone underneath, you pull the belly up and away from the floor. Gaze looks back towards your knees, the chin tucks to the chest. And as you keep that going, I'm going to give you something else to think about. If you lose track, don't worry about it. Just keep on with your cat-cow and your easy breath. But as you keep that going, can you think about the movement originating from one place in the body? And it might be up to you where you feel like that movement is led from. So I tend to think about the movement unfurling from my tailbone and then rolling back towards my tailbone. So my tailbone lifts to begin the lower of the belly, and my head is the last thing to come up on the inhale. And on the exhale, my head is the first thing to dip down as my back body rolls back towards my tailbone. We'll go a couple more breaths, just playing around with that idea that this is a wave rippling out from one place, from one point. Taking your final round of cat-cow like this. We'll do some other stuff as well, but last one like this. From here, when you're ready, drawing yourself back to a neutral spine, taking a break off the wrists if you need one. We're going in for one more movement before we come off altogether, but if you do need to catch your breath, bring the wrists off the floor, you're welcome to. We're just going to start to find a bit of a roll through the hips. So it'll start with the right leg. We're going to draw the right leg up and away from the floor. There's a bend in the right knee. So the right knee comes from its exact position on the floor, 90-degree bend at the knee, and just simply lifts up back behind you. It doesn't have to go very high. And if you're struggling to get it high and that means you're dropping in the lower back, you're going to lower it and keep neutral in the lower back. That's what we're interested in. And we're just going to start to circle that right knee. So as if you had a felt pen strapped to the point of your kneecap and you want to draw a big circle on the floor and up the wall beside you. So you're circling the knee in and under the chest, up and out to the side, around and back in. I'm actually going to flip around so you can see what I'm doing on the other side in case it's useful. The knee comes into the chest, takes its way up and out, over and around. So up and in, maybe a little bit of rounding in the back body, out to the side, over and down. You're looking for as smooth a circle as you can manage. You might just change direction here. Roll it back the other way. Ooh, find one way, much easier than the other. If you are somebody who is like that and finds one rotation easier in your brain or in your body, don't worry, I'm with you. We'll go a couple more rolls like this. And yes, there is a little bit of lighting up of some of the muscles around the hips. You might find that the belly has to really engage to stop you from wobbling over. That is a good thing. That's good stuff. That's what we're after. We'll go one more. At the end of this next rotation, let that right foot stretch back out behind you. So you're going to stretch the leg out to long. The heel is reaching towards the back edge of your mat. You're still in neutral in the body. So you're doing your best not to kind of sag the belly and the chest. You're keeping everything engaged. The belly draws into the spine. You're going to push back with the hands. Take an inhale breath. Feel the stretch down the back of the leg maybe. And as you exhale, you're simply going to release that pressure and let the right leg come up and away from the floor. The right heel up in line with the right hip. You're going to become light on the left fingertips if you can. And you're very welcome to keep these left fingertips on the ground. They're there. If you need to tap them down, you're welcome to. If you feel like you want to move on from here, maybe you're going to stretch left arm out long in front of you and draw yourself into this long, strong balance. And very importantly here, you're not looking at the hands and you're not looking at the foot. You're looking straight at the mat, about 15 centimeters to the left of your right thumb. Your neck is included as part of the spine. Take an inhale breath. Exhaling, push the floor away. See if you can draw your knee to meet your elbow underneath the body. Scooping everything in. Drawing heel towards the bum. We're going to go twice more through this. If you're not working with the arm, you just draw the knee in. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale to round in, to tuck chin to chest, to draw knee up to wrist maybe. Inhale, lengthen, last time. Exhale to draw in. Pull everything in. Firing up the belly. Inhale, lengthen out. Exhale, left hand finds the floor. Right knee finds the floor, and let's give the wrists a break. So, it's your choice. You can either choose to tuck the toes underneath you or leave the tops of the feet flat on the floor. But you're going to work your way back to sit in a kneeling position. If kneeling is very uncomfortable for you, maybe a forward fold is a good place to loosen off the wrists, the shoulders, and the upper and the lower back. If you've come to kneeling, all we're doing is nothing technical or fancy about it. You're just giving the wrists a roll and a shake. And as you give the wrists a roll and a shake, perhaps you could include the shoulders here as well. So maybe you start to get the shoulders a bit of a roll, maybe the elbows go with that, the wrists start to go with that. So you can kind of get everything moving in the body. If it makes more sense for you to do one shoulder at a time, please do that. You don't have to do both at the same time. They might move very differently. Whatever roll you're up to with the shoulders, if they're going back, just see how it feels to bring them forwards. Again, fingers can be wiggling, hands can be stretching, wrists can be rolling, elbows can get included in that movement as well. Release the shoulders back into their natural position, wherever it feels comfortable and easy. Give the hands one last shake, and we'll bring the hands to the mat. We're going to do exactly that same little pattern on the other side. If you have had the toes tucked underneath you that whole time, you might want to untuck the toes here and just give the feet a little paddle out on the mat. So a little drumming on the floor that just sort of brings a bit of life back into the feet, relaxes off the toes again. And we'll meet back, hands underneath the shoulders. This is your last little bit of all fours action. And then we'll start to work our way into a bit of flow. So firing up the belly when we come through these little stabilizing kind of rotations. Hands are firmly planted, and it's your left knee. The bend stays the same, and you simply lift the left knee up and back behind you. And again, if you're lifting it high and you're finding it's aggravating the lower back or making you really wobbly, you drop it a bit lower. From here, we'll start that roll. We'll bring the knee into the chest. We'll take it up and out to the side, over the top as best you can. Over the top I find to be the hardest bit, and we'll draw it back in. If you are struggling to keep your balance, a little micro bend in your elbows is going to go quite a long way. So imagine if you were trying to balance on two perfectly straight sticks versus trying to balance on two hydraulic springs. You've got hydraulic springs, so you might as well use them. A little bend in the elbows. Notice the belly switches on to keep you stable. At the bottom of this next rotation, we'll take it back the other way. So reversing, back where you came, up and over in a different direction, in and through. Go for two more. Maybe you can match it up with your breath. Maybe you've forgotten to breathe. If you've forgotten to breathe, come back to the breath, keep breathing. Eventually, we'll send that left leg back long behind us. Left toes are tucked underneath. Left heel is reaching for the back of the mat. And this is a kind of an opportunity for you to ease off that left hip. So you can push back, heel towards the back of the mat. Hands can be quite active. Big stretch perhaps in the calf muscle, in the back of the ankle, the back of the knee. When you are ready, take an inhale breath, fire up that stretch. And then exhale to simply release the tension to let the left foot float away from the floor. Stretching out long behind you in line with your left hip. Come light onto your right fingertips. And you don't have to lift your hand. You can just play around with being light on the fingertips and letting them tap down whenever you need to. If you want to lift the hand, we'll go for it all together. Inhaling to reach the right arm out long in front. Yes, nice. Really nice. So remember, you're looking straight down at the mat. The neck is included as part of the spine. Take your inhale breath here. And exhale to push the floor away, to pull the belly button to the spine, to draw the knee into the elbow. Inhale, lengthen. You're going twice more. Exhale, draw in. Ooh, a little wobble. Those wobbles are so good for getting your stabilizing muscles back engaged. Exhale, draw in. Elbow to knee. Last time. Rounding the back, pushing the body away from the floor. Inhale, lengthen out. Exhale, right hand to the floor, left knee to the floor. Let's give the wrists a bit of a break. You're tucking the toes and coming back, hips to heels. Or maybe, if tucking the toes doesn't work for you, sitting on the feet flat. Or maybe keeping the body weight away from the heels completely. Give the wrists a bit of a shake. You can give the shoulders a wiggle and a roll if you want to. Any little movements that you feel like the body needs here. Feeling everything ease off. This time, when our hands come to the mat, we're going to make our way through downward facing dog to transition us to our forward fold. We're not going to hang out in downward facing dog too long. So bringing the hands back to the floor, knowing that this is sort of your last little burst on the hands, and we'll come up to stand and give them a bit more of a break. Tucking the toes underneath you. Your inhale pushes the hips back to the heels, taking your inhale breath to coil the spring. Exhaling, you can let the hips unfurl, lifting high, maybe give the head a shake, and you can get straight into any movement you like in your downward facing dog. Maybe you need to adjust the distance between your hands and your feet. Maybe you want to pedal out through the legs, bending one knee, then the other. Hips could sway from side to side. You could give the head a shake. Any little movements you feel like you want here. Remembering, the tailbone is lifting up and back, the chest is melting back towards the thighs. Take an inhale breath. Exhale, maybe have a sigh. Go one more, inhale through the nose. Exhale to side, let it go. Inhale, look forwards between your hands. Exhaling, you're going to walk the feet until they are underneath the hips. And then just let the body hang. So let the body hang back into your forward fold. You can bend the knees, swing the body side to side. You can come into a ragdoll, if that suits you. Any little movements that you feel like you want. And then when you feel ready, we'll make our way through a very slow roll up to stand. So we're going to release any grip that we've got through the hands. Go as slowly as you possibly can, bending the knees and pushing the feet into the floor to start off, pulling the belly button away from the thighs and starting to tuck the tailbone underneath you. As you work your way up the back body, you're going so slowly you can feel each vertebrae clicking into place on top of the neck, like you're building a tower of Lego bricks. The shoulders slide onto the back body, the neck stacks and the head lifts up last. When you get there, pause in total stillness if you can. And then from here, if you're not there already, take a couple of steps forwards and find yourself at the top of the space that you're working in. So coming up to the top, we're going to start our way into a familiar, reasonably familiar flow with some kind of added bits and pieces as we go. None of this is intended to challenge your breath. So if you're finding that you're struggling to breathe, or you're short of breath, or you're accidentally holding your breath, I've lost my breath now from being upside down. If you're struggling to breathe, short of breath, holding your breath, that is a sign that you might be pushing too hard. You might be just forcing it. And if you're forcing it, then you can back off. You can absolutely come away from that end range of your maximum effort and back right off. So find yourself up near the top of your mat, planting firmly through the feet. And just find, talk about this quite a lot at the minute, something I'm interested in. Just find a little bit of softness at your knees. Just a very slight kind of buoyancy through the knees, so that, the reason we do that is so that when you reach the arms overhead, it's not a movement that just comes from the shoulders. I can wave from my shoulders all the live long day and not really feel anything. If I have that slight bend in my knees, that slight buoyancy in my knees, the rise up on the inhale breath comes from the floor. You draw that power right the way through the whole body, so it moves all the way through the body until you get to the top of the inhale. That's what we're after. So find yourself somewhere near the top of your mat, that slight softness in the knee, that slight kind of buoyancy and spring, that potential to really draw power up. So when you're ready, it's an inhale breath. And an exhale breath begins your fold. Bend your knees a lot. Bend your knees more than you think you need to. Let the belly meet up with the thighs and let the head hang. Inhale, you're going to rise to your halfway lift, sliding the hands up the fronts of the legs until the hands are just above the kneecaps and the elbows magnetize in towards the ribcage. Lengthen. Exhale to fold yourself back in, long over the legs, all the way down. Fingertips to find the mat, steadying you as you send your right leg back long behind you. Your right leg stepping back long. Nice. Plant the right knee down. Again, feel free to put some padding underneath the right knee if you would like to. Untucking the right toes. So we're working low to the ground. We're working in a controlled and slow way. So just check that you are stable before you go for the big movement. Check that you're not going to wobble to the side as you sweep the fingertips forwards to rise up, arms reaching up and overhead. You're bringing yourself into a neutral upright position, more or less. So belly is drawing in. The hands are going to slide onto the back of the head here. And you might already be able to feel the sensations that are happening in the front of the right hip, in the front of the right thigh. You might already feel the stretch there. Go with control. Inhale, open up through the elbows, lift the gaze. See if you can lift the chest. Exhale, the elbows draw closed. They roll up and over, and it's as if each elbow wants to meet up with the bony part of the front of the hip. It won't touch, don't worry about it. Inhale, you'll open up. Again, you've got strong stabilizing muscles in the legs, really working quite hard to keep you from falling over. Exhale, you'll close in. But you've got this articulation through the back body. You're not pulling against the back of the head, keeping the back of the neck well protected. We'll go one more time. Inhale to open up. Exhaling, you'll close in, round in, elbows reaching as if they're going to touch up with the hips. Last time, you're going to inhale. Sorry, you're not. You're going to release your hands and bring your hands to the floor from this rounded position. Fingertips are touching the mat. You're in a real rounded back body. Both hands are on the inside of your left foot, and your left foot might now want to go slightly out to the side to give you a bit more space. From here, walk the hands forwards as you inhale, draw the chest forwards, creeping your way into your lizard. So it's a different way of coming into lizard. We come from this rounded, pushed back position, and we slink our way forwards, lengthening in the chest. You can let the hips move forwards if you like. You are welcome, when you come into this lizard, to make more space for the body. So you might take the left foot out to the side a little bit more. You might let the left toes turn out to a 45-degree angle. Just check the knee is going with the toes. Inhaling here. And then exhaling to push back more like neutral. From there, you're going to take this left foot. It's a slightly interesting transition. You're going to take the left foot and drag it back along the mat until it is roughly level with your right knee. It will turn, the toes will turn out as you go. And you might notice that is hard work for the outside edge of this left leg. From here, we're in our sort of base for free movement that some of you will recognize, but we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're simply going to inhale, left arm up and open. So left arm reaches for the ceiling. Chest has got space across the collarbones. You're breathing steady here, and you can let the neck, the head be completely relaxed if that feels good. You can let the head hang. We'll take one last breath, and then we'll bring left hand gently back down to the ground. We're going to bring left knee to match up with right knee, so that we can tuck the toes, send the hips back to the heels, and find our way to downward facing dog. Hips reach high. From your downward facing dog, once you've got it settled, once you've had that moment where you adjust your feet, your hands, you pedal, you wiggle, you do whatever you need to do, we will roll out to plank. And we get to plank by inhaling to come high on the tiptoes, pulling the belly in and rippling forwards all the way until we hit our plank. As soon as we get to plank, we're strengthening it up and taking an inhale breath. And then we'll exhale, gently release the knees to the floor exactly where they are. You've got another breath. And then you'll gently bring the body down to the floor exactly where it is. So the body comes down. We're going to start with a tiny baby cobra. We're going to add on to that in our next couple of rounds. So the hands come underneath the shoulders. This does not have to be big. You're going to inhale, and it's as though you are pressing. It's as though somebody has placed their hand on the back of your head and is pushing you down to the floor. And your job is to press up and resist that hand. So on the inhale, you're going to rise up, lift that person's hand away from the floor. Exhale, you'll lower down. It doesn't have to be a big movement. You'll still feel the muscles in the back body switching on. We'll go twice more with the breath. So last one, elbows reaching back towards your hips as you rise. Exhale, lower. Tuck the toes, press the hips back to the heels. And we'll meet back in our downward facing dog. Just as a transition that's going to take us through to standing. So we go back to downward facing dog. You have a breath there if you want it. And when you feel ready, it's an inhale to look forwards and an exhale to walk the feet until they are underneath the hips. So you can hang out over the body in your forward fold, maybe shimmying, pedaling, wiggling. Give everything a shake. From here, we're going to sweep to stand. So find that press into the floor with the feet. That slight bend in the knees so that when you rise, it comes all the way up. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhaling, the hands can come down however you like. When you get to the bottom, pause in stillness. Nice. We'll meet back at the top of the mat. We're going exactly the same through on the other side. When you're ready, a little spring in the knees and you inhale to rise. Exhale, you'll fold in. The body catches the wave of the breath. The belly soft against the thighs. The head hangs. Inhale, your halfway lift, rising up halfway, lengthening and flattening the back body. Exhale to fold. Fingertips to steady you. It is the left foot stepping back this time. And the left knee gently finding the floor. Padding underneath the left knee if you need it. Just go straight in there with it so you're not having to stop and do it halfway. Check that you're going to feel stable, and then when you're ready, sweep fingertips forwards to rise up. To this upright sort of thunderbolt position, you are stretching fingertips up to the ceiling, big inhale breath. Exhale, hands to find the back of the head, interlacing the fingers perhaps as you find thumbs can track down the back of the neck. We'll go into that movement, inhaling to open through the elbows to lift the chest. Exhaling to draw the elbows up and over as if you were closing in around a football, the elbows drawing in towards the hips, not pulling against the head. Inhale to lift up and open. Let the legs work to stabilize you. Let the core work to stabilize you as you draw in. Your focus is on finding and maximizing this movement in a way that feels good and interesting for your body. Last one. From this rounded position, you're going to release the hands and let them come down to find the floor. And as they come down to find the floor, you might round in the back body even more. That's okay. We want both hands on the inside of the right foot, and the right foot might creep slightly out to the side now to give you a bit more room. When you're ready, use an inhale breath to walk the hands forwards to drop the chest and belly low as you slink your way into that lizard shape. So it's not a big movement. It probably isn't. It doesn't feel like a big movement. No, it doesn't look like a big movement, but it feels like a real difference in what's happening in the spine. If you're finding that lizard is very intense, make sure you've still got that breath steady and maybe give yourself more room. Take the right foot further away. Turn the right toes out to the side slightly. From this lizard position, we're going to drop the palms of the hands to the floor, even if that means we have to back off in order to get that, so that we can drag the right foot back on that interesting transition, really firing up the outside edge of the thigh to get the heel roughly in line with the left knee. And once we've found ourselves there, it's an inhale to sweep this right arm open, bringing yourself into this open shape through the chest, through the collarbones. Maybe you want to release the head and the neck. You've got a couple of breaths here, and if you feel like it's good to sort of satellite dish the arm around, you're welcome to do that. Use your next inhale breath to lengthen up, and your next exhale breath to return the right hand to the floor. Right knee goes back to match up with left, and we're floating through our familiar vinyasa, tucking the toes and sending hips to the heels. Inhaling here, and then exhaling our way to downward facing dog. Settle your downward facing dog first. You're not trying to rush out of it, because if you rush out of downward facing dog, the base for everything else is going to be all sort of skewed. So check hands and feet are in the right place. Take an inhale, rise high onto your tiptoes. Pull the belly in and ripple yourself forwards to plank. Hit plank, get strong, take an inhale. Exhale, gently releases the knees, and then gently brings the body to the floor. All the way down. From here, hands under the shoulders. Tops of the feet are actively pressing down into the floor to recruit the lower body into this movement. And we're going 3 breaths in that tiny baby cobra. Inhaling to rise. Exhaling to lower. And you might notice how when you're coming up, there's that moment where you can choose to lift the gaze or you can keep looking straight down. I'm interested in the looking straight down. The neck as part of the spine, an extension of the back body. It's your last round, I think, if you're breathing roughly about the same speed as me. I do breathe very slowly. Exhale, lower down. Plant the palms, tuck the toes, and when you're ready, send the hips back to the heels. We use that downward facing dog as a transition to make our way back to standing. So you'll push back, hips to heels, coil the spring, inhaling. Exhaling to unfold into your downward facing dog, hips are high. From this position, settle yourself in, take a breath if you need it. And then when you're ready, looking forwards between the hands, you'll walk the feet underneath the hips, and we'll meet back somewhere in our forward fold, hanging out over the legs. Give everything a little wiggle, a pedal, a stretch. Maybe the head gets a bit of a shake. From here, plant down through the feet, find that softness in the knees so that when you rise up, it comes all the way up. Inhale, you'll rise, lifting up and open. Exhale, hands come down however you like. Find your way gently back to stillness and pause there. From here, we're going to begin to make our way to the ground for a couple of little other kind of stretches and movements. We're not completely dropping into stillness yet, but we are working our way down. So we're going to come down through a squat pose. If a squat pose isn't for you, don't worry. It is a transition and we're using it to get down to the floor. So don't worry if you know that squat is a real challenge for you, because we're simply going to move through it. We're not going to pause, which might make it more accessible actually. So your feet are going to go slightly wider than hip width, and you'll turn the toes slightly out towards the sides. You're going to take your inhale breath when you're ready. Buoyancy in your knees to sweep arms overhead. Exhale, bend the knees a lot so that you can put the fingers on the floor. So you come down, you look like a little sort of frog in your halfway lift. From this position, we're going to drop the bum down low as makes sense in your body, and bring the hands behind you so that you can lower the hips all the way to the floor, straight in to a seated position through your squat. So you've dropped the hips as low as makes sense in your body, hands come behind you, and you bring the bum down to the ground. Yeah, that's it. If you need to take a different route, that is totally fine. Once you've got bum on the ground, you're going to have your feet almost exactly where they were in your squats. The feet are on the floor wider than hip width with the toes slightly turned out. It's hard to sustain sitting upright like this, don't worry, I know. So we give ourselves help by wrapping the elbows around the knees and just lightly catching the fingertips or the hands out in front. So again, it doesn't look like tons is happening in my body. I'm very aware of that when I look at the camera. Something I maybe need to have a little think about. So this is our toad pose, and the sensation that we're after here is a slight hug in against the knees with the forearms, so that you can inhale and really lift the chest. You can lift and broaden and create space in the chest. So you're sitting upright and drawing yourself forwards. I'm going to show you it from the side. So when I grab my elbows, there's a slight rounding, but once I've got the grip, I can really pull forwards and lengthen up, sitting upright. You can think about softening and releasing your neck. You can think about dropping the chest to the chin to the chest even, if you want to. A couple of breaths here in your toad pose, perhaps noticing what happens in your hips. Perhaps noticing what happens at the outside edge of your hips. And then from here, when you're ready to let go, you're simply going to switch off the pressure at the elbows so the back body can loosen and round perhaps. Hands are going to come behind you, and believe it or not, feet firmly planted, scooch the hips to the heels a little bit, and we're laying ourselves down onto our back. So bringing ourselves straight down onto our back body, but we're not necessarily dropping immediately into stillness or into Shavasana. So if you do have layers or a blanket that you use for your Shavasana, keep them close at hand, but you're not going to want them covering the body just yet. Because from here, we're going to bring hands onto the kneecaps and just start to find a slight roll through the knees, a roll through the lower back, which actually might feel really nice and interesting after where you've just been. You've got choices here. You can roll both knees at once together, like I'm doing now. Or if it makes more sense for you, you can roll the knees away from one another. I always think of this like a kind of hand whisk. I don't know why it's got the action of a hand whisk. So if you'd rather go for that option, you can totally get stuck into that. So once you've had a little roll through the lower back, it doesn't have to be precise or perfect, but you do want to have rolled in both directions if you can. So maybe just take it the other way for a few little rotations. Once you've had a bit of a roll, you're going to bring the left foot to find the floor. Both hands can draw onto the right knee just to give them somewhere to go for the time being. And once the left foot is down on the ground, hug the right knee into the chest. Maybe just get yourself a little bit more space so that you can cross the right ankle over the left knee. Crossing the right ankle over the left knee. And we're not going to grab a hold of the left knee and pull the left knee in towards the body. Instead, we're going to let the upper body completely relax, heavy into the floor. We're going to use the breath to change the way this position feels, to turn this position into more of an intention that kind of intentional movement. So the right foot is active. You're going to use your inhale to ground and anchor the lower belly, the lower back. And use your exhale to think about driving that right knee away without touching it. Inhale, anchor the lower back. Exhale, right knee's moving away. Noticing how powerful the breath can be in finding that stretch, in finding that activation. When you feel ready, keeping the right leg as it is, your hands are going to come by your sides. Plant down through the palms. Take an inhale breath at the bottom. And as you exhale, push into the left foot and see if you're able to lift the hips into a very shallow bridge. So very shallow, one-legged figure four bridge, just giving you a bit of space in the front of the hips. Use your exhale to lower it down. Leave the right foot exactly as it is. You're simply going to let your knees drop to your left. And as they go, so as the left knee drops to the left, the right foot is going to be the first part of the body that makes contact with the floor. And you might want to dodge that by just letting the right leg slide a little more into the twist. So letting it, rather than being the right foot at the knee, you might slide it so it's sort of the bottom of the right calf muscle at the knee. You can change the position of your hands here. You could bring them out wide, or you could bring them into that kind of double U shape out to the sides. This is a big twist in the body, so it is totally okay if you don't feel like you want to include the neck as part of that twist. If you want to, you can look out towards your right, but if it already feels like there's a lot happening, don't worry. Keep your gaze towards your left or up to the ceiling. When you're ready, you'll unwind, starting with the right leg, lifting it up and out so that you can roll back into neutral. The right foot might find the floor, and you might just want to give everything a bit of a wiggle, a stretch, a roll here. In this last little sweep through, we'll go on the left. So we're going to draw the left knee into the chest and just give it a bit of a hug maybe to get yourself enough space that you can hook the left ankle, left foot over the right knee. Toes are flexed, the left foot is active, and your hands can rest wherever you like, on your belly or by your sides. And from here, you're just using the breath. The inhale anchors through the hips. The exhale drives the left knee away. Use the breath to change this from being somewhere you're just hanging out to somewhere the body is feeling sensation. When you're ready, you're going to use your inhale breath to anchor your right foot. Hands come down by your sides, so they're acting as your stabilizers, so that you can exhale and press the hips up into a very shallow little bridge. Breathing all the time. If it's intense, use an exhale to lower. You don't have to hang out there. When you're ready, exhaling the hips lower down if you haven't gone yet. When the hips touch down, you're going to bring the arms out wide or up into that W shape, so you can let the right knee fall to the right. The left foot might just move slightly over the knee, so it's more like the calf muscle is there for the twist. You're letting the knees drop into space. They don't have to touch the floor. They don't have to come all the way down to the mat. They can hang in space if that feels good. And again, it's your choice about how included you bring the neck into this. Breathing all the time. And then when you feel ready, starting with the left leg, you're simply going to unwind. Left foot unhooks and brings itself back to neutral. Right knee can come back to neutral as well. You'll find yourself back in your easy kind of semi-supine position, your constructive rest shape, and just make any movements that you feel like you need to make here before you begin to settle yourself down into your final shavasana. So really take your time in getting there. Last movements if you want them. Your shavasana can look however you like. So it could be legs stretched straight out. It could be feet on the floor. Hands could rest on the belly or by the sides or overhead. You could lie on your side if that suits you better. Once you've found your way into a reclined position, we're just going to play around with a little tension and release thing that I do often with kids, but it's nice after we've worked the lower body in such a kind of intense way. It's really nice to think about really releasing it and letting it go. So once you found your way into stillness, we're going to activate certain parts of the body and then let them go. So when you're ready, you're going to point your feet. You're going to point your toes really actively. Really tense up all the muscles in the feet. Take an inhale breath. Exhale and just let the feet completely relax. Let them go. Same again, but with your knees. Inhale and really squeeze every muscle you can get to around your knee. Feel the fronts of the thighs active. Feel the outside edges of the knees engaged. Inhaling. Exhale, let the knees release. Let them go completely. This one, inhale, you're going to squeeze your bum. You're going to squeeze your bum so that your hips lift up slightly. You're really going to clench and tighten. Lower back, bum, you might feel the belly kick into gear. Take an inhale breath. Exhale, let it release completely. Feel the lower back spread and melt across the floor. The hips soften, the belly soften. Release the body into the mat, especially the lower body. Allow yourself to drop into this softness and come back to the body right now. In this moment, right now, the body exists. The body feels sensation. We're dropping in to this moment. And allowing that softness. Watching as the body finds its way into ease. Simply allowing that relaxed breath to make its way into and out of the body, with nothing to do here. Nothing to do but let the body be what it is in this moment. When you feel ready, draw yourself back to the breath, back to noticing the cool air at the nostrils, the rise of the chest, the belly, the fall and release of tension. And as you deepen the breath, you might be able to wiggle fingertips and toes, eventually taking a stretch, maybe arms up overhead, full body reach. And then when you're ready, gently rolling yourself onto your side and pressing yourself comfortably up to sit. Really take your time in coming up. There isn't any hurry. And once you are seated, perhaps you can allow the gaze to be cast down or the eyes to stay closed, so you can really remain just for a few final moments present right now, soaking up these final sensations. If you want to seal your practice, you're very welcome to. Maybe bringing hands to heart center, or bowing the head to the heart, or anything else that feels right in your body. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me.